Hey there, welcome in. Oh, we got to get the light going in the background. Hey now, there we go. Wednesday edition. Tim Hill, unrestricted free agent. My extreme thanks to Justin Stevens reaching out. Hooked up this little background we got on the YouTube live stream. However, you're joining us right now. You're listening to the audio-only version on Podbean. You can live stream that sucker, listen to it later, whenever, all over the place on the podcast platforms, Facebook Live, Twitter. However you're doing it, really glad you're a part of the program. We got some esteemed guests set to join us in just a minute. Right off the top here, talking plenty of Gamecock baseball. That's where we'll start after last night. The latest for Carolina, USC Upstate beats South Carolina 9-6 at Founders Park. That drops Carolina baseball down to 24-23 overall, 10-14 in the SEC. Kentucky coming to town this weekend at Florida to finish. Those numbers, I think everybody knows, just it's not good enough for South Carolina baseball. I know there is more parity in college baseball than there's ever been, but South Carolina still prides itself on being a really good baseball school. And I won't just go on and drone on and on from a media nerd perspective. We're going to get much more qualified opinions in on the program. That's what we're trying to do here each and every day on the Unrestricted Show. And we're going to start right now with former Gamecock assistant coach Stuart Lake and former Gamecock standout Brady Allen joining the show. Gentlemen, thanks for hopping in. You guys hear us loud and clear. Oh, I got to turn the music off before you guys start popping in here. New show, second week. Appreciate you being patient with us. I think we can hear you guys now. How you doing?
Doing good.
All
Can
right.
you hear us?
I got you just fine. How about that? We're off to a flying start. We got Brady, you're down in Florida right now. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. Down in Jupiter.
And the Class A affiliate with the Miami Marlins, correct? Have all this written down, correct?
Yep, that's right.
All right, man. And Stuart, we tried to get you on in week number 1. I would say up and down success with the internet connection, and now you're coming in strong.
Yeah, I've made them come out, look at my internet, and obviously now that Brady is one, I don't know, you got a great background too, Tim, but I'm going with the palm trees and sunshine. So if you'll have me next time, I'll work on my background to try to keep up with you two guys.
Well, it looks like you got a sun room, but you got all the sun blocked out right now. I got the fake green screen behind me. Brady's living the life. It almost looks like you might be getting a haircut outside in front of the palm trees right now with the little – that's a garnet shirt you're wearing there. Just how I was looking at it. Brady, I think you were trying to join us last week as well, but things did not go well for your team the night before. Is that what went down?
It was just we were on the road, so we had to work out, and we don't know the exact times until pretty much the night before. So because they have to let us in their weight room to lift, so we had to go around 10:30, 11, and then I want to get back in time. So
Stuart, hype that up. I thought this was not a Bull Durham situation where you ticked off the manager and then you got punished for it.
No,
I thought it might have been a lollygagger situation, Tim, right? No doubt. But Brady's a team player, so he probably would keep that under wraps from us anyway.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Good to know.
He's always looking out for the organization. That's what I liked about him.
Brady, really want to hear what you're up to and the transition between Gamecock baseball and minor league baseball. But first, I wanted to get Stuart's take on what happened last night with the Gamecocks and maybe your perception of the program as well, just now be not so recently removed from it. Stuart, you're on the call for the radio broadcast last night. What did you see with USC Upstate, especially with the former Gamecock and the transfer Noah Myers going 4 for 5 and really helping USC Upstate get that win?
Yeah, and, I thought when we escaped that first inning, Eli Jones was, getting his 4th start. We kind of talked in the pregame he was going to be up to 65, maybe even 70 pitches, so you're kind of feeling pretty good for that. First inning, you escape a bases loaded situation. And then second inning, the wheels kind of fell off early in the game. Eli ends up leaving the game with some kind of tightness in his arm. They end up scoring 4 runs. And really at that point, you could feel, and Brady's been there with me in those dugouts, when those teams during the middle of the week start to feel momentum, you need to grab it right back. And unfortunately for South Carolina last night, they couldn't grab it right back. Before you know it, it's 5-0, and then it's 7-2, and you're kind of starting to look at each other, in the radio booth going, well, we're going to need a big hit here. And never really got it, kind of snuck back in it at 7-5. Then they got the 2-run homer. But you mentioned Noah Myers. Me and Brady talked about him this morning, even before coming on. I mean, he was just one of those guys you had fun with. He was the 4th outfielder last year in a really talented outfield and never one day complained, just kind of filled in his role, was fun on bus trips and locker room. You just knew what you were getting with him. So to come back last night and go 4 for 5, I think at least 2 RBI or 3 RBIs, I think 2 runs scored. He had an assist on that weird play late in the game. So I was kind of joking. He pulled back up to, the high school, graduation, whatever, in a Corvette with a supermodel with him last night. He couldn't have drawn it up better for him. But what really showed it to me is after such a tough loss and all those guys knew it, at least 12, maybe 15 guys are on the field talking with him after the game. And you could just really, from the radio booth, see how proud and excited they were just for him as a friend and a former teammate, even though they were upset they had lost.
And you actually kind of went through that yourself, coming back as the Charleston Southern head coach and beating South Carolina back in the day. So I'm guessing you've gone through that kind of personally, where you have maybe mixed emotions going in or all kinds of stuff going on, and you end up getting the win as a visitor at Founders Park. Yeah,
there's no doubt. I at Sarge Fry and then over at Founders, to walk through that outfield gate without Gamecock gear on for the first time was really strange when I came back from at Charleston Southern. I did it at Ole Miss. I've grown up my whole life a Gamecock guy. And even though I haven't coached there my whole career, I promise you, once I knew what had happened in our game, they were the first score I always check. And I know right now with what we're going through as a program, it gets all of us. It gets everybody involved. No one is ever trying not to win. And it's just one of those times right now that it's hard on a lot of people. But proud of Noah last night, disappointed because it was one of those games that RPI-wise, not very good already. Dropped you about 3 more spots last night. So they know what's in front of them to do with 6 conference games left. But last night was a tough one.
Brady, what about you? Where are you? I know you probably can't follow the program as much as you would like, being in and out and day in and day out in the minor league process right now. But what are you thinking about Gamecock baseball?
Right. We have a ton of SEC guys on our team. So that's pretty cool. So every weekend my roommate went to Alabama, and then my roommate on the road went to Texas A&M. So we'll tune in and watch it whenever we can. I mean, we all still follow up pretty well, but first of all, just like, it's really hard to cheer against Noah Myers. So I'm really happy for him. I know everyone on the field was really happy for him, probably hoping he did good, but they won. And just like Coach Lake said, when you get in the midweeks, when the other team gets that momentum, like, I don't know if you remember the Citadel, when they got the stadium full of cadets, they're letting you have it. And it's a lot harder than people think it is. People just think it's a midweek game. It's almost a win every time. But when they get that momentum, it's tough to get back. And fortunately, a couple of years ago, we got the momentum back. But yeah, we're really tough. So.
Yeah, Stuart, can you talk about that? Because I think a lot of Gamecock fans remember the Ray Tanner era, especially in 2000, where a team goes 50-6, and college baseball has changed. There is more parity for sure. Can you speak to your perspective on that, having seen college baseball evolve to where we are in 2022? And then now, how does that pertain to the South Carolina program?
Yeah, I certainly, 1999, I was kind of looking the other day, and some guy said no SEC team has ever won 15 games in the new era and not made it. Well, I wanted to immediately text in and go, yeah, they did. 1999. Brady, we won the East in 1999 with 15 wins and still didn't make a regional. They took all 6 teams at that time from the West and did not take us as the East champions in 99. And I vividly remember sitting there that day in that locker room, not making it. The seniors, obviously, and the guys that were drafted, we knew we weren't going to have back. And Coach Tanner pulling those guys together that day and said, this cannot happen again. We put ourselves in this situation with only 135 games total. He said, this cannot happen again. And I don't think that one speech is the reason the next year we go 56-10. But I can tell you this much. Every game that next year, and really for the rest of the time I was involved with the program with Coach Tanner, if anyone thought they could roll their, throw their glove out or roll the bat out on a midweek, we reminded them real quick that that's not going to happen. And there were guys in that locker room, coaches, all of us were saying, no, we're not going to wait and leave it for somebody to decide in a room on us again. And that was a big thing. But like Brady's saying, just like last night, they brought their Friday night guy in to close the game last night. And Coach McGuire told me before the game and after, if I got a chance to win this game, I'm going to win this game. And hopefully it works out on the weekend for me. He's got UNC Asheville this weekend, which is a big conference game. But, he said, heck, I want to win here. And that's what happens a lot in the midweek. And I think people lose focus of that a lot is when these teams come in. I did it myself at Charleston Southern. I'm having my weekend guys out there on the mound. I mean, I'm trying to win because I don't get to play in those venues. I don't have the attention that you get from playing the South Carolinas, but every so often. So when I got it, you wanted to take advantage of it. And, the modern era now, it's kind of get to 14 wins. People feel confident, but RPI becomes a factor. And like I said, I think we're down to 72 this morning in RPI. And really, you'd like to be in at least the top 50, if not top 30 almost, when you're trying to sneak in, sort of like we'd have to do with 31 to 32 wins. So it's just one of those. Brady knows it way better than me. I've never stood in the box consistently in the SEC, but it is so hard right now in college baseball to just be consistent. And that's what you're seeing, and that's why there are very few teams with elite win-loss records this year in college baseball.
Yeah, Brady, what do you think about that?
Just the overall pitching of the SEC, I mean, it's really tough. I mean, it's no walk in the park for sure. And I think the draft year, a lot of the top guys kind of, got drafted. But, I mean, as you see, the freshmen from Tennessee, like there's a ton of freshmen stepping up, and that's, like, crazy to see. I mean, the guy's almost hitting 100 miles an hour and stuff like that. So it's definitely no walk in the park playing SEC baseball, especially hitting. And yeah, I don't think they get enough credit for how they're doing in some games. I know some games aren't the best, but
well, I want to get your take on the difference now, the transition between SEC baseball that you got to play a bunch at South Carolina and now battling out in the minor leagues with the Class A affiliate, the Miami Marlins. They're the Jupiter Hammerheads.
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference is probably command, just a little bit. Usually at this level, everyone throws hard. I mean, you see 95 plus every single game, but not necessarily know where it's going. So get a little scared stepping in the box, but it's a different kind of fun. I had a ton of fun at South Carolina, and so far I'm having a ton of fun here. It's just different guys, from all over the world. We get along great. We make sure to have a good clubhouse. That's one of the similarities from college. That was really huge with me. A lot of team chemistry and stuff like that. But yeah, the command's probably the one, and just consistent 95 plus arms. And if they don't throw 95, it's sinkers at 91. So everything's moving, just really good pitching.
It's interesting to hear you say that. I had a buddy who played Double-A ball. He got up to Double-A in the Boston Red Sox organization. He said he actually preferred hitting in Double-A because he knew the pitchers would have a little bit more control and command, and that Class A stuff gets a little wild, like you mentioned, when you hop in the box.
Yeah, I have a quick story about that. I was facing one guy, and first pitch he threw to me was 98 behind me, and I go, oh, I was standing in the box. I'm like, all right, I might have to take a step off the plate. He comes back with two sliders at like 89, 90, and those are hard sliders, and start right at me, catch the inside part of the plate for strikes. I'm down 1-2, and I'm like, okay. I was pickling. When I saw it at me, I was like, oh, like I was getting out of the way. So it is really funny. It's on video. My hitting coach showed me. He was laughing too. And the next pitch, I'm like, all right, I have to stay in. I know he's throwing a slider right here. So if I get hit, I get hit. So I threw it. I ended up getting the hit, and it was just a really funny story. So that's kind of how it goes. One starts behind you, and then they'll paint the corners twice. So.
Stuart, as a former hitting coach, I know you've had a bunch of those conversations with hitters and the whole deal. And for those of us watching, we got no clue, man. We got no clue how that looks and feels in the box. And I'm guessing you can identify with that a little bit more, or certainly relate with all the stories you've heard through the years.
I do. And before I even get into it, I'd love to ask Brady. I haven't had a chance even how much you were in the scouting reports. We had a lot of good video because it's called Synergy. So every game was on video of teams we played, so you could go and look. Do you feel you're still getting to have that much information in the minor leagues, or are you kind of going on hearsay a lot more?
It's almost spot on for what we did. So you guys, it was a great transition from South Carolina to the minor leagues. We watch video on them. We talk about them. They have kind of the hot zones of like where he likes to throw, where he gets hit the hardest. That's one I love to look at because sometimes you don't want to hit where he throws a lot, because that might be where he's trying to get, like low and away. So he might spot it low and away well, but you want to look for the ball like up and in, like, because that's where he gets hit the hardest, So yeah, that was a great job transitioning from that. So
I'm guessing, Stuart, Brady had access to that his entire Carolina career.
Yeah. And
how has the evolution been with that in college baseball, with the advent of video, and when did that really start becoming prevalent?
Well, I'll show my age. Like, when I started in the 90s, you called each other. There was Comcast Sports may have one college game on, on a Saturday. And if you were lucky, the team you were playing had played on it. Most of the time you haven't. So what it led to back then, scouting reports were, and Coach Tolman would say, okay, you call these three guys, I'll call these three guys, Coach Myers call this guy. So we would just spend all our time as coaches calling each other. Now what it did, and I made this comment the other day to a younger coach, it really led you to learn and know who you liked in the business as people. And that's why today, 27, 28 years later, we'll still run into people, and you'll start talking about something that's really irrelevant to most people, a scouting report on this guy or that guy that we talked about. Did you think that guy was going to really pitch in the big leagues? I thought this. So that part went away. Now what we're saying with like Brady and them, almost every game is on ESPN Plus. So we have this system called Synergy that actually broke it down for them. So if Brady wanted to see what he threw every 3-2 pitch, he could just click it in and it would show every certain pitch in a row. To me, that part's awesome. Now, what it did start to do is you kind of quit calling a lot of your buddies because there's no reason to call and ask, Brady Allen, what so-and-so threw, and I can go right on with my own eyeballs and watch it. The speed's popping up on the screen. And so it's really, to me, I like it. If I'm David and I'm fighting Goliath, I'd like to know how tall this sucker really is. And in the day, it used to be, hey, Brady, take a few extra rocks. We may have to sling them at him. Now, at least he knows, like last night, USC Upstate brought a guy in at 6'9", 260 is their closer. And through kind of Brady, from like a 3/4 arm slot, and then would just come over the top arm slot. So, it's hard to put that in a scouting report. And in the old days, but now they've looked at it. So they knew he was going to do that. And they battle with him. But the fun part with Brady Allen and Wes Clark and those guys, Andrew Eister, all I can name, those guys you knew were doing it. There were guys also you knew weren't, because you could say, hey, this guy's left-handed, and they'd agree with you, and he's right-handed. So you knew they hadn't really looked at much video. But I knew going into games, those guys had looked at it. Now, we still would ask each other stuff. Brady would say, Coach, what do you think that pitch is? Is that a cutter or a slider? Or is that, you might say, is that a changeup, or is he trying to, whatever? So it led to cool conversations, but we had the video. And that's where it's awesome to hear for you as a minor league, as you work your way to the big leagues, that you still have that access, because I know how important it was to you in your preparation.
About 5 years, the last 5 years or so, would you say that's been a thing? Last 10 years? How long? Any idea, Stuart?
Probably five when it became easy. It used to be you could still grab the games off TV, but this one system then started putting it all together for you. Our managers, gosh, even in 2017, were still cutting video.
Right.
And what I mean by that, they would literally have to take it, cut out commercials. It was, they were miserable doing it. I mean, you're talking about a regular game would then turn around and take them another 2 hours to cut. And we were wanting them to cut 2-3 games, in a day. Mm-hmm. So, boy, when this came out, those guys partying because that was off the table. And now also Brady TrackMan. Yeah. I mean, that's giving you legitimate velocities, spin rates, and minor league baseball. Is all that available to you too, the TrackMan?
Yep, it is. So we can go back. We have like little iPads, first of all, that have the pitchers like throwing, like the video of them. And then we'll have the heat map and the percentages and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll have you can go back and look at your at-bat. It will show you where the ball was when they threw it, the spin, the movement, and what like pitch it was. So that's great to kind of see that, because then you'll start catching on to like tendencies. So like if they tend to start you off with a breaking ball, fastball, then end you with a changeup, like 2 at-bats, you'll start to see that. So the 3rd at-bat, you have a pretty good idea.
So to me, it sounds like, and Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong, Brady, you're a pretty analytical mind when it comes to your hitting approach. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't say I live or die by it, because right. I'll good to, when you're on deck, get your timing, like always use that as your like primary stuff. And then I always keep the like percentages in the back of my head. Like if he throws a first pitch fastball like 75% of the time, I'm keeping that in my head, but I'm not going to live or die by it, because if he throws a hanging slider, I want to hit that too. So
how similar do you feel like your teammates are to your preparation or your mindset, other hitters on your minor league team, and then maybe other former Gamecocks back in the day?
Do you mean like, did you say preparation? I'm sorry.
Yeah, from a mindset, and then how you prepare, right? Because I feel like there are a lot of different guys out there. Some guys don't want the information, right? Even if you steal signs, some guys will say, I don't want to know. And then some guys want to know absolutely everything they can possibly know, and it helps them. I think it just depends on your personality and your approach. And I'm just wondering how you feel like most of your teammates were either similar or different to you.
I think in college, everyone was pretty much the same. We all went into the scouting report. We all got the information and kind of did drills and stuff like that based off the pitcher and what he did. If he was a fastball thrower, I would love to hit off the machine before, get used to the velo before the game. And if it was kind of like a little soft tosser, but with good stuff, good off speed, I would like to see the curveball machine, or like Coach Lake used to do, like a bounce drill and stuff like that. So kind of drills surrounding that. And then in pro ball, I mean, it's like one side of the spectrum right to the other side. But we have guys that absolutely love it and they can't play if they don't see it, and then people that don't even go to the hitters meetings. So what I do is I get the information. If it's a lefty, I always do offset toss to the left-hand side to try to stay on it, drive balls to right center and not get too pull happy and stuff like that. And just drills, like I said, like evolving around what the pitcher does. So I love to have the information before BP even.
Stuart, from a coaching perspective, can that drive you nuts, having to deal with the spectrum like he was talking about how different guys just prepare and approach it differently?
Well, that honestly was the part I enjoyed the most, because I knew when everybody asked me, what do I miss? I don't miss winning or losing. I especially don't miss losing. But winning was fun. But to be honest with you, and Brady can testify to this, at South Carolina, winning was just a relief. You felt like you were supposed to win. So you didn't jump up and down and have parties when you won. It was a relief, and you were getting ready for the next game. What I miss right now, and it'll drive me back to coaching, is a 7 o'clock game. Brady Allen was probably texting me at 11:30. Going, hey, you got a chance to come down and hit. I want to hit now. Then I may lift. Then I may want to take a nap. Then I want to look at video. So on a game, I missed that part of game day so bad, because I had a Brady Allen or whoever in there at 11:30 or 12:30, whatever. And those guys that I knew that they were guys that just, you had to go grab them. and go, hey, I do want to share this with you. This dude's going to throw a lot of first pitch changeups today, which is not normal. So I know you're not a guy that's really wanting to listen in the scouting report or do very much, but you need to be aware of this. And to be honest with you, most guys would go, okay, it didn't bother me. It really didn't, because it's real easy. You aren't playing well, you ain't going to play. So when they would come to my office and go, Coach, why am I not playing? I'm not saying this for Brady Allen because he's on there. I go, hey, who's the best hitter on the team? And a lot of times it would be, well, Brady Allen. Hey, is he hitting the cage a lot? Yeah, it seems to do. Before practice, after practice. Do you see him lifting a lot when y'all aren't even in there as a team? Yeah, I see that. Hey, academically, do you ever see him having issues like where we're – and he had his. Now, he's no angel here. But do you really ever see him like panicked academically? No, sir. Do you see where I'm going with this? Maybe you need to start doing some of these things. And that's a cool part of coaching, because Brady's freshman year, no one got yelled at more than Brady Allen. So it was so cool that by his junior year, guys were coming to me going, everybody treats Brady so good and Brady this. Dude, you have no idea what it was like his freshman year. But what he does, and Brady, I tried to share this last week. My internet kept cutting off. I want you to really hear this too. I flipped on MLB channel early one morning last week, and an older GM was talking that what has happened, he feels, in pro baseball is all of a sudden when we were able to get knowledge, TrackMan, video, whatever you want to call, we forgot wisdom was still important. Right. And he said that organizations were running scouts out. They were running older coaches out, and it all became just knowledge, just dumping it on you guys, and no one there to share. And one organization that he felt really did it well was the Atlanta Braves. He said they kept a lot of older guys in the Ron Washington's, their manager, a lot of guys that didn't fight knowledge. And I never fought knowledge. Everybody will look at me and go, are you an analytical guy? If you're a baseball guy, Tim, you're an analytical guy. I promise you, we all know our batting average. We all know our own base percentage. We all know numbers in our life. That's how we work as baseball people. So we're all analytical guys, but I was fortunate, and I hope Brady will get to continue with guys as his career goes on. I had a lot of old school guys teach me how to use it. Ray Tanner was an analytics guy. He would sit and look at that stat sheet and find something that would just be the most bizarre thing. In a sense, like last night, USC Upstate had 14 pass balls. That's a lot of pass balls. Usually a score, the guy just says wild pitch. Well, they had 56 wild pitches. Last night, Brady, you know how many they had? 0. So it's one of those things that the next day, Coach Tanner would go, that's a team that was fielding 960 that had no errors. A team that was supposed to give us a free base never did. So you got to have that wisdom back in it and with that knowledge. And again, that's where it was cool with guys like Brady. That started long before me. That started at home with parents that were common sense people, or a coach that was really, I know who Brady played for coming up through his high school and travel ball. Those guys had a lot of wisdom that helped him be able to comprehend the knowledge as it started coming in.
Yeah, Brady, how do you approach that, the knowledge versus wisdom in baseball now?
I definitely, talking back to like seeing the guy on deck rather than looking at data and stuff like that. We have a ton of guys, also older guys that have played in the big leagues, like directors for the Marlins, that come by and drop knowledge on us, like just little nuggets of really, really good stuff. And I'll give you an example. One was it was about hitting. Early in the count, it's impossible to hit 3/3 of the plate, right? You're covering the inside, middle, and outside. It's impossible. So he was really telling us, look for that pitch. That's where you want it. You're like wheelhouse and stuff like that. So for me, it would be up and in a little bit. So in BP, I was looking for that pitch maybe one round. And if I get a ball outside that's clipping the corner, early in the count, I'm not swinging at that in the game. So why would I swing at that in BP? So I'm just training my mind to do stuff like that. And it really helped. I mean, the next game, the balls middle in and a little up, they looked like they were coming in slow motion because I was really looking for it. And I was just on time and good preparation too. So stuff like that I appreciate it. When someone talks, I listen all the time. eye contact, really like absorbing what they're saying, because I know they're not just saying it to say it. So.
And I got to follow up on what Stuart mentioned, your kind of evolution from being a freshman to being later on in your Carolina career. What changed?
So I got in, and I'm pretty thick-skinned. So Coach Kingston, he got on me, but I know all love. I mean, he wasn't getting on me to bully me whatsoever. So he told me the first time, I think we're shagging, and I kind of wasn't, shagging up to par of what he wanted. So, and he was like, hey, yeah, he called me in all the way to the turtle from left field. I had to make that jog, preparing for a scrimmage, I think. And pretty much to sum it up, it was like you have to shag better. Like, I want you to run for almost every ball. That's the time for outfielders to get better. And it was a little bit more than that, but I was like, yes sir, like I right on it. And I really think that's what brought me from below average outfielder to above average. So just stuff like that. The little stuff, running down to first base. I mean, anything you could think of, he was on me. And most people would think, like, why the heck is he talking to me like that? Like, they might get down, but Coach Lake would tell you, I mean, it hyped me up. It fired me up. I love when people do that, because it shows they care. So.
Well, to me, that's an example of a coach knowing a player. Drew Meyer was on with us yesterday, Stuart, talking about how Ray Tanner was a master of that. He knew how to pull the best out of each individual player, but having to do it in different ways. You guys have those conversations behind closed doors, I would imagine, as a coaching staff, Stuart, about which players react to certain methods in the best way?
There's no doubt. And, and Brady got to see Coach Tanner a little bit. I want to share this story with you, Brady. My son thinks Brady Allen wrote the book on hitting. So everything that my son Hayden Lake does is Brady Allen, Wes Clark's got something to do with it. And it's cool for me as a guy that coached him. So, Brady, we started the year, and Hayden had hit about 4 balls right on the screws, went 0 for 7 to start the year. Kind of, high school when you go, oh, my God, I'm never going to get a hit.
Oh, yeah.
So I called in the big gun quickly. So I called Coach Tanner, because as a dad, and you're going to find out, I hope one day, it's really hard when you're wanting to be the dad and me be the guy that says, hey, suck it up, let's go. Have quality at bats, move on. So now I called Coach Tanner, and this was his wisdom he dropped on me. And I'm telling you this one because you need to write it down, because it's so simple. You'll laugh, but you're going to need it at some point.
Yep.
He says, Stu, here's what I want you to tell Hayden. I want you to look right at him and say, hey, listen, hitting's really easy. It really is. You know what you're doing. I've looked at your video. You're getting your foot down early. You're getting your hands back. Hitting's really easy. Here's what you're screwing up. You're thinking that getting hits is easy. Yep. Getting hits is really hard. So why don't the next at-bats that you have, just see if you can work at getting on base somehow, forget about it being a hit, and just hit. Have fun. I kid you not, the next game, Tim, 3 for 4 with a home run. And my son gets home that night, and, you're excited, and I go, what'd you do different? He goes, I just hit.
Yeah.
I just hit. And it's Brady knows. Brady's going 0 for whatever, and he will again. And he's going 7 for 7, and he will again. But, man, the hitting is fun. Getting hits is hard. And what we would do, you had asked me, we'd sit in the locker room, did it with Coach Kingston too, and you knew you could get on Brady Allen. I mean, it was real easy. But where Coach Tanner was really good is he would go, hey, I'll use Drew Meyer. Go give Drew a heads up. I'm going to get on him pretty hard today. Because they pay attention. Brady Allen was that guy too. Believe me, when we got on Brady Allen, so-and-so noticed it, whoever you fill in the blank, because holy cow, this guy's batting third. This guy really is going to be a really good draft. And they're getting on him. Well, I'm not even playing, so I better shut up and do my work. So I would go out to practice early a lot and grab a Drew and go, hey, be prepared. He's going to ride you like a rented mule today. And Drew would laugh and go, okay. And then there were times Coach Tanner would not tell me in advance. And when he got through riding someone, he'd go, hey, go hit with him in the cage and pick him up and let him know when I write the lineup tomorrow, he's still in it. And that's what was so cool. And I hope I did that when I was a head coach. And that was what I enjoyed getting to do as an assistant coach, because I knew how hard it was. And a lot of times I would, after Brady Allen had gotten yelled at for having his shirt sleeves pushed up, trying to get sun, on one of those days, I would go at the end and go, hey, as an old coach once told me, get worried when they quit yelling at you, because that's when they've moved on. And Brady would smile and go, yes, sir. And he'd never have the cool thing about Brady and the cool thing about good players, you never had the same argument twice or the same. Those are the guys you worry about. When we're making fun, the sleeves up on a sunny day. When you're doing that 2 or 3 times, hey, you're not paying attention, or you don't care, or you're not listening. That's when you got an issue. You never had the same conversation with Drew Meyer or Brady Allen, or you just throw in names of those greats because they were like, yeah, screwed up. I'm not going to do that again. And that's what was fun to watch as a head coach or as an assistant coach.
You get some of that good cop, bad cop stuff in pro ball as well, Brady, or is it just a completely different relationship between player and coach right now?
Yeah, I would say in a sense that you definitely get the good cop, bad cop. The head coach everyone loves him. He's I would call him one of my friends actually, but no one disrespects him. You hear it. It's you can joke around with him, but when it's to be serious, it's he gets serious. Everyone around him does too. And then you have our hitting coaches. Coach Lake reminds me just like you. I mean, we'll tell jokes the whole game. I'll be going 0 for 4, and I'll start telling him jokes, and he'll laugh and start telling me jokes. That kind of just helps me out. He doesn't get, like really angry and say like go sit down and watch the game or something like that. So, yeah.
As I hear that, Stuart, that's all about the relationship with players, and to me, that's where baseball is really special. I know all sports have a special bond between players and coaches, but the intensity can be so frequent in other sports. Football especially comes to mind, and how physical it is. Even basketball, your coach is right there on the sideline, and everything's happening in front of everybody. But baseball, it's such an internal struggle sometimes. You mentioned you go through a slump, right? And then you're not only battling the pitcher, you're battling that self-talk or the demons in your mind, the doubt, the whole thing. Is that what makes, especially a hitting coach, that job so special from your perspective, having been that, Stuart?
I have no doubt I wouldn't have had the success I had without Dr. Ron Casper. When I got to South Carolina in 1998 as a coach, and I'd been here since 96, and I saw this guy, really well-dressed guy walking around all the time. I never knew who he was. But in the fall of 97, 98, I got to really start knowing, as we all just called him, Doc. And it was unbelievable. I had great coaches. I had got to play for my high school coaches in the Hall of Fame. I'd had college coaches that were really good. I've been so lucky. That's why I went into coaching. If I'd had bad coaches, I probably would have not gone into it. But what I had not had was a guy like Dr. Casper who could sit me down and go, hey, you realize that this is way more mental than physical, right? And at that time, I was 25 years old. I didn't. I mean, I was still lifting weights with the players, and I was still, enjoying that part of it. And so Dr. Casper, for years, I thought when people would say, what's the secret? And Brady got to know Doc real well too. What's the secret to South Carolina baseball? I always felt it was Dr. Casper, because not only did I have someone to go to when I go, hey, Doc, how would you deal with this? They also had a guy to go to that they knew wasn't right in the lineup, wasn't going to go behind their back and tell Coach Tanner or Coach Kingston what they were talking about. And the mental part is huge. But you do have to be there to get to know them. And that's where I'd say with guys like Brady, they're so good. You got to think on a game day like yesterday, he would have been at the park at 11:30, and we may or may not have even hit. You wouldn't have played until 7. And Brady can tell you some of the coolest times I ever had with him, Jacob Olson, Iser, those guys would want to hit after games. I mean, I can see Wes Clark now knocking on the door. Hey, Coach Lake, you want to come hit? And it would be after a game. And my wife knew it. Hey, I'd text her, y'all going to bed. I'm hit with a couple guys. We'd go in there, and it was a different mindset because there's no pressure of a game. They would be saying some things to each other. Most of the time, I just listened. I just threw BP and listened or flipped. And that part was then how I knew I could approach them when needed. But, man, it's a struggle, our game. I mean, it's a love affair that you hate it and love it. And it's all goes into one day sometimes with baseball.
Yeah, Brady, for those of us who've never had any kind of experience with a sports psychologist, how does that work from a player perspective?
It helps way more than you think. And there's Evan Longoria, I remember, said his career changed when he started talking to one. I remember we watched a video on that, and that just goes to show. I mean, he said he would have never had the career he would have had if it wasn't for him. And it really helped me. We have one here too. He talks all the time, and it's really cool hearing what he has to say. And just when you get through a slump, it is a mind game. It's you against yourself, and sometimes it's you hitting the ball hard, just right at someone. You're not even doing anything wrong, you know. And it's the biggest thing I learned. I'm done getting mad at myself when you have a bad game. I wish I would have done that sooner, but there's way too many games, and I've already gone through it, and I've only played I think like 35 games out of 130. So there's a ton of games, and everyone's gonna slump. I've come to realize finally. it's just how fast you get yourself out of that slump. You know what I mean? And here it's not about necessarily batting average, because you could have one guy that hits the ball hard every single time, but right at someone, and someone that you know will bloop one, and they've come up to me and said, "Hey, I mean, you're hitting the ball above average from everyone on the team and even in the league, but don't even worry about your batting average. Just keep doing what you're doing, and the hits will come."
So for players hearing that, Brady, how did you get to the place where you're finally over being mad at yourself?
Just continually talking to, in my case, our psychologists and stuff like that, and the hitting coaches. It's good to like reassure your players, I guess, that if they're not getting hits, just let them know they're hitting the ball well, and just really having a heart to heart to myself, and like, because I know a lot of people will think it, but it's a different thing to think, to not get yourself to be mad at yourself, and to really like believe in it, if that makes sense.
It does, but I think it's very important to distinguish out there, Stuart, and I'm sure you can take this from the coach's perspective. You can only get to that place if you know you've done everything from a preparation standpoint. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah,
Right.
I wrote a note here as he was saying it, where Brady Allen will never say, "Boy, I wish I'd have worked a little harder at South Carolina." I really don't think he can say that, because of what I saw in the weight room, what I saw in the cages, what I saw on the field. And when you do that, you haven't failed if you do fail. You just playing a game that's designed for you to fail. But young hitters that are listening, and I know Brady's going to smile when I say this, you will never get to a point in your career where you go, "God, I wish I wasn't that strong." He took the weight room serious, and so did Wes Clark. So did so many other guys that are having success. One of his best friends is a guy, Brett Carey. And I'd love to get Brett Carey, Wes Clark, and Brady Allen on this show one day and not even have to talk, because those three dudes live together. But I'm going to tell you, they were some of the strongest guys I've ever coached. And Billy Anderson, who's incredible with what he does, will tell you those guys had success not just because they were talented. They were talented. They were some of the strongest guys he's ever coached. And what I hope Brady's learned, and I told him all the time, have a journal. Because when you're having success, write down why. Because, boy, when those bad days come, you'd like to go back and look. He worked hard. I never had to say, "Hey, let's hit," and him not be there. I never had to worry about those issues. He has set himself up for success. And then once you get into pro ball where he's at, it's all kind of factors going to go in. Where's your organization need this? What they need there? So a lot of that will be out of his control, but just get strong. And he took the things that he could do so well. Get in the weight room. Work on your speed. Don't forget this guy can run. It was one of those things that as scouts were talking to me, they'd say, "Hey, can he play center field? Can he play?" Oh, yeah, he can run. He can throw. He can do the things you need to do in the outfield. Then on top of it, he was a hitter who played outfield because he loved hitting so much, where Jackie Bradley's probably more of an outfielder who hits. And Jackie knew that all along through his career. He was never trying to be Christian Walker as a hitter or Whit Merrifield back when I'd get to be around those guys. But Brady embraced that weight room, and that's what young guys I tell my son all the time, do not come in here and complain to me if you haven't worked as hard today as you can in the weight room, running sprints, or whatever you're doing. And that was something I never had to do with Brady.
Good stuff there. Stuart Lake, Brady Allen, a couple of former Gamecocks joining us now. Brady in the Class A affiliate with Miami Marlins right now, the Jupiter Hammerheads. I want to hear how the minor league life is, Brady, compared to college life. What's the biggest difference? What are some similarities?
So the biggest difference would probably be I've been living in a hotel for about past 9 months. So that's kind of the biggest difference. We were in an apartment in college, but we really are blessed that they are paying for. As we're talking, my hitting coach just texted me, but we're really blessed to have the organizations pay for a living. I think that's a huge up step for us, and that takes a lot off our plate that we have to worry about. I wouldn't say there's really too much differences, at least for me at South Carolina. I mean, I get to the field still really early. We'll probably hang up and I'll probably head over there pretty soon. And our game's at 7:00 tonight. So that stuff's probably the same. A lot more games. That's good. They do a good job of. We play 6 games a week. I play 5 of them. I have one off day and I'll DH one day. So they do a great job of like spacing out, making sure we're fresh and stuff like that. The trainers are outstanding in both places. The strength coaches are outstanding. So there's actually not too much of a difference besides living and the amount of games.
How's the food?
It's good. It's good in most places. I mean, some places always has their food not good, but
that's interesting to hear. Stuart, through the years, I've heard minor league ball it doesn't compare favorably to the college baseball experience, especially at South Carolina. You think this is the result of some recent upgrades? That's what it sounded like to me. That I know that has been an emphasis in the minors.
Yeah, well, it definitely is in fact of the living. I mean, just up until last year, it was ridiculous. We're 4 or 5, maybe even 6 guys at times living in an apartment. And the food was always an issue, trying to get there for the spread before, other guys got there early. So, but it's also a case where guys realize this is his career. So, I mean, Brady can still eat at McDonald's if he wants to, but if he does, he's probably not going to be playing very long. So I know Brady, he's going and making sure his food's working for him in a sense of whether what they're providing or not. But I do think, I hope, and Brady knows it better than me because I haven't seen it, but I do think Major League Baseball has finally recognized that, hey, we need to take care of our guys a little bit more in the minors because these really are our future. And the free agency is always going to be there for certain organizations, but you look at the Marlins, you look at certain organizations, they've really put a pride now in bringing their guys through. And what that does is it leaves the Brady Allens, God, you want his hitting coach to be promoted to AA or AAA. And then one day they all get into the, like they've done with organizations, you get to the big leagues. And if his hitting coach is the bench coach in the big leagues and Brady Allen makes it, it just makes both their lives better for the manager, for the player. So a lot of organizations have really said, hey, let's take care of our own. And if we can make a splash in free agency, we'll do it at the highest level. But to see what they're trying to do better now, because I know Brady's heard me say, but I was a minor league umpire in 94, 95. And it was awful for what I would like a lot of times see. We were treated pretty good as umpires. We had some per diems, and it was just 2 of us. And I'd see these guys in grocery stores buying loaves of bread and peanut butter and jelly and things. And when we were in there, and you're like, how can they expect them to really do this, eating like this? So I hope it continues to get better for them as it goes, because I know we've used it as a recruiting tool. I'm not going to lie to you. South Carolina, we'd say, hey, it ain't going to get any better than you ain't flying charters. You're not going to stay in nice hotels and different things. So we've used it to get guys to South Carolina, and heck, we've used it to make them stay because we wanted them to realize it. So I hope that hopefully there's something he misses about South Carolina, but I know Brady, he's going to make the best of where he's at. So that's a cool thing for him.
I definitely do miss it.
What do you miss the most right now?
Just all the guys and all the friends you make for 3 years, I mean, those people become like your family. I still talk to a ton of them, and not saying the guys here don't, but it's just a different kind. These guys here are friends. Some of them become, that family type, but I think of all the guys on our team like last year, sophomore year, freshman year as family. So I miss that. I miss all the coaches, miss Coach Lake, and yeah, just miss Columbia and the college lifestyle.
Any stories that you guys particularly want to get to from your days that we can broadcast here on the internet from from the Gamecock days? But before we get you out this morning on a Wednesday morning, and Brady, I know you got the hitting coach texting you, and you got the next game looming and the whole thing, so don't want to keep you too long, man.
Yeah, no problem, Coach Lake. I'll let you try to come up with something that's appropriate.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, and believe me, they really weren't criminals. So I don't want to come off that we were doing stuff that the FBI needs to be looking into. But again, I go back to Wes Clark, Brady Allen, Brett Carey. They're the three stooges, kind of, that they all came in with, success off the bat for some of them, for others not. But I just always knew one of my favorite things was checking on the road. Just room checks and just silly stuff. I mean, when I would honestly tell my wife, she would like laugh and go, "Y'all are worse than girls." Where a Wes Clark may hide in a bathroom, when I'm checking rooms, or I walk in and they would have taken their video games and TVs on the road, and they're all in a room with headsets on playing video games, and it's a part that I don't think that I wish fans could see it more, to be honest, because I think they see these guys as big leaguers already at college, and they're expecting just no failure. And my wife has got to see it, and my son's got to see it. These are normal dudes, and they're fun guys. I mean, I was so proud, and he's heard me talk about Chris Coughlin, just graduated from Ole Miss, who I've talked about so much, who left there in 2005, and to see him go back and get a degree, and I can tell stories. That's who Brady Allen's going to be. Not with the degree. He's going to be smart too. Now, I'm not saying he's got to go back and do that, but I'll be telling stories to hitters when I'm old about Brady Allen, and it was just fun. But they've done. I try to think of some of the silly stuff. I'm telling you, so silly it's like embarrassing, because I would go around to check rooms, and where's it at, and they'd act like he wasn't there, and then it was just silly stuff that made it so fun, though. I mean, it really did.
Yeah, I would answer the door in my underwear, try to make Coach Lake feel uncomfortable. Wes would be hiding outside the door, like around the corner or something, to scare him. He would be in the closet or under the covers or something. But yeah, we would go around, definitely try to make it a fun time, just not too serious. And I remember like we would go around practice. Coach Kingston could have been in the most serious conversation of his life, and me and Wes would go up and like try to tickle him and stuff like that, and like or play tag or just stupid stuff like that.
To me, again, it's the unique relationship that baseball can bring out. That maybe it's because you play so many games or you spend so much time around each other, just the nature of the game, that it's individualized in so many ways. But then you have the dugout and the clubhouse and the whole thing. To me, it's what makes it so special. And I love hearing you guys recount those stories, and you just see it on your faces, just the memories and how special it was to both you guys.
Yeah, I got actually one more after this. We were big. I don't know if you remember with like the scythe and stuff like that.
Sure.
And like casting spells, those are double celebration. I mean, who have you ever known done that? But we would send like hype, like text messages to the group chat before games and stuff like that. And I don't want really you to read those. That was kind of for the team, but I remember one time Wes was hitting, and I was in the dugout. I think I got out probably. But I turned to Coach Kingston and I go, cast a spell at him. And he goes, all right, I'll do it. So Wes was literally hitting. Coach Kingston gives the signs from the dugout. He was giving the signs and then literally started like casting spells at him. Our head coach in the middle of a game. And Wes was laughing. I think he struck out, which that's what made it even better. But that's kind of another story. But I remember that one. It was hilarious.
Stuart, do you ever think you'd see a dugout where spells were part of the celebration and the whole thing. I mean, the spirit stick is famous around Gamecock baseball back in the national championship days. So I guess it's just the next wave, and all teams have something like that, right?
Yeah. And if you don't, you're not going to be very good, because I'm telling you, you would watch these guys. They would all be together upstairs, and then someone would have to yell, "Hey, let's go. It's time to stretch." And then we'd all get out there, and then it would be get back upstairs. I loved going in there. A lot of times I wanted to be Bobby Valentine, throw a mustache on and sit in the corner, because the reason I love baseball is I love locker rooms. I love dugouts. I love buses. And we were talking before the show last year, we had to take 2 buses. So, we were really spread out. We were playing one of their games they call Mafia, which would be another day for an entire show to explain. And they taught Billy Anderson and Coach Meade and myself how to play it. And my wife would be texting me, that, "Hey, did you do this and that?" And I go, "Hold on, we're playing Mafia." And, but what are you talking about? I'm like, and I had my son new to game. So he would be like, "Mom, they're playing Mafia. He can't be talking to you on the phone while he's a gangster right now, whatever. He can't do that." So it was just awesome. And to see them carrying it with them into pro ball, I'm telling you, because I've already seen it. I've heard it from some scouts that will say, "Hey, they're loving Brady Allen. They're loving," you look at Jonah Bride, a guy that came right before him. They're loving it because they have brought that fun to their team. And then they work hard. And when you work hard and you're fun, you're a guy you want on your team.
Well, Brady, wish you sustained success and a lot of success there in your pro ball career. I know you said you're about 30 games in or so. Would love to catch back up with you as you move on down the road, and we'll certainly be following you here on the show. We appreciate the time and catching up with Stuart Lake and telling some of those old Gamecock stories, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'll try to get Brett and Wes on, if that's all right with you, one time. And we'll dig deeper into the apartment stories. So.
Hey, man, if we end up playing Mafia on this show, I will be just fine with that, too. I'm totally cool with that.
That's awesome.
All right, Brady and Stuart, man, really appreciate you guys' time. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch up again soon. Sound good?
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, Brady.
Yep. See you guys later.
Yep.
How about that, guys? Brady Allen, Stuart Lake. Great to have those guys in on the show, and I hope that gives you a bit of an insight. Ashley, great line here. Hearing from Brady was good for the soul after the tough season the baseball team is having, right? Because usually a show like this would be all about, hey, here was the score from last night, right? USC Upstate beats South Carolina 9-6. Carolina baseball drops to 24-23 overall and 10-14 in the SEC. The NCAA tournament projections, it gets that much more difficult. Stuart Lake was talking about the RPIs at 72 now, and certainly not what you want it to be. And everybody just gets depressed, right? And we forget about those players are guys, their sons, their brothers, the whole thing. The coach is the same deal. Now, that is not to excuse any type of losing or not performing, right? Got to be very clear about that. You still got to win at a certain level. You got a job to do if you're a coach. When you're a player, you got a scholarship or a partial scholarship or at least preferred walk-on or whatever it is from a baseball standpoint. You have expectations you got to live up to. But fun having those guys on there. Jason with the fun interview comment, Justin as well. Great to hear from those guys. And that's some of what I want to bring you here on the program as we continue to move on in week number 2 on a Wednesday. And we're going to get into a little Gamecock football now and do it with someone who is associated with the program now, was associated as a player, has had a long time professional career in the NFL and a bunch of success as well. Patrick DiMarco joining us now on the program. Patrick, really appreciate you hopping on, man. How are you?
I'm good, Tim. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Are you confusing me now with a baseball shirt? Is that what that shirt is reading right there in front of us?
Yeah, this was my son's Little League baseball team back in Atlanta.
Nice.
I was deemed to coach 4-year-old baseball, which was quite difficult.
Whoa, 4-year-old baseball. Man, last night I was coaching 6 to 8-year-olds in coach pitch and then jumped over to 9 and 10-year-olds. And I can totally identify there. Why don't we start, man? You just had your 4th child, is that right?
Yeah, so Wade is 3 weeks old now. Yeah, we have Weston, who's 6 now, and then Sutton, who's 3, Collins, who's 1, and Wade is 3 weeks. So busy household here.
Woo. How does child number 4 compare to the other 3, or how does going from 3 to 4 change the game? Because we went from 2 to 3 2 years ago. It totally changed our game for sure.
I guess the toughest part is just having 2 babies. I mean, Collins is 13 months, and then Wade is 3 weeks now. So it's the big kids are having to figure it out on their own pretty quick because the younger ones require the attention. But we've had a lot of help with family and people in. It has its challenges, but it's fun along the way too.
I can only imagine 4, man. Impressive stuff. Good for you guys for taking that on, and yeah, the perspective that it brings, I think, is really important, and really appreciate your perspective. You mentioned family. Is that one of the reasons that you wanted to come back to Gamecock football, having played for Steve Spurrier back in the day, and then gone on to a long time successful NFL career, now back in Columbia?
Yeah, I pondered if I wanted to coach during my playing days, and kind of was just unsure because I knew what the coaching life kind of entailed as a player. I understood the long hours, the time away from the family, so I was unsure if I wanted to do it. My heart obviously pulled me into it when I was playing, and honestly, my last 4 or 5 years as a player, I was like a player coach because I was helping out with the other positions, and I was kind of putting stuff in layman terms for special teams and kind of had a role like that. But coming back here, the opportunity to come back, a place that I played, a place that holds a near and dear place in my heart. Work under a guy like Coach Beamer, who was here when I was here. My wife went to school here at South Carolina. It made the decision a lot easier to coach, even though I kind of was a little resistant to it at first. So yeah, I mean, being a Gamecock, wearing the Garnet in black now, and now in a different role, is super cool, and especially to mentor into the guys and have that relationship and try to develop men out of these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. It's been really fun.
Yeah, what is the official title now with the football program?
So I'm a football analyst. I think there's 6 or 7 of us analysts now. We kind of, our roles are more data input, kind of organizing meetings, making sure all the prep work for the position coaches is all laid out. And then I'm also the assistant director of player relations. So doing former player stuff, making sure events are set up and kind of that stuff, helping with player development as well. So kind of a hybrid role, doing a lot of different things, kind of getting my feet wet. So it's been really good.
So are you at the stage where you're kind of evaluating where to move forward right now, and kind of, you got a few paths, you got your hands in a couple of different things, and then you're going to kind of choose where to major at, I guess, maybe, without a better way to put that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of the role that Coach Beamer, when he pitched it to me, it was like, because he kind of knew how important family was to me and how I had such a young family. So he knew that the coaching life might not be exactly what fits my lifestyle and my family dynamic. So that's why he kind of gave me a hybrid role to really figure out if coaching is what it is, if it's player development, if it's former player relations, if it's, eventually Gamecock Club fundraising stuff. So he's kind of opened the door to let me kind of test it on my own time and figure out what exactly I want to make of it. So I've been super appreciative of him. He's such a great man and a great leader. It's been really cool to not only play under him, but now work under him.
And when I hear coaching, I think of kind of being an assistant coach, like officially on the staff, if you were in charge of the running backs or something, which just entails a massive amount of time commitment to the recruiting part of college football, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Our 10 position coaches are out recruiting right now. They've been on the road for 3 weeks now, and they're gone Monday to Friday. Out recruiting, and then they come back for the weekends. We have a staff meeting on Monday, which all coaches are present, and then they kind of go back out and are on the grind again. So it's, some of it's local. Some of the coaches are out and about away. I think Step was in Texas most recently. So it's, it does have some restraints on the family life, but it's being in ball, it's being in what you love, it's pouring into these guys, which I think makes it all worth it at the end of the day.
Has your role now, has that changed how you look at football at all? I mean, you were there as a player at South Carolina, various different organizations in the NFL, all pro fullback, the whole thing. I'm guessing you are highly qualified. I don't mean to say that you didn't know what was going on, but do you just see it a little bit different or fuller now that you see it from a different perspective?
Yeah, I guess the game planning standpoint, that's kind of my eyes have been open now to that. I always knew, just because I watched so much tape as a player and I was such a perfectionist as a player, that I was super tuned into not only my roles, but like I like to know why I was doing my job. So I needed to know what everybody else's job was, which kind of made me learn the entire offense when I was playing. But now on the coaching side, understanding why we're running certain plays, why we're motioning this to get this look, that stuff is kind of a different world for me. Just because as a player, I wanted to know enough, but I didn't want to know too much. I didn't want to clutter my mind with too much so I could play free and I could play fast. If you're thinking too much, you're not playing. So from that standpoint, and I bring that perspective to the coaches now, because everyone wants to try to get the perfect look and do the perfect this and the perfect that. And you get that opportunity 3 or 4 times a game in a 60 or 70 play game. So you can't go try to sniff out those looks every single play. Sometimes you have to line up, not shift, not motion, just run the dang ball or drop back and throw it. I'm more of a simplify things, because that way the guys can play fast. And that was a lot of the coaches that I had when I was playing, not only in college but in the NFL. Like, what's the saying? Keep it simple, stupid. So if you can let your guys play fast and play free, they're gonna play at a high level. If you confuse them and they have too much on their plate and they have to think about where they're lining up, what foot's upright, like how many steps is this route? Oh wait, safety rotation, is it cover 2? Is it cover 3? Is it quarters? If they start thinking too much, they're going to play slow. And in this league, you can't play slow because there's too many good athletes in this league.
Well, it reminds me of one of my favorite sayings, and I say it pretty often when something like this presents itself, is the true sign of genius is making the extremely complicated look extremely simple. Who has been the best? Some names in your career from a coaching standpoint of doing that?
Kyle Shanahan, I would say first and foremost. He was our offensive coordinator in Atlanta for 2 years. His offense was very complex, but he dumbed it down to the players. Like, he wouldn't expect the players to know the offense like the coaches do. You know your role, know your job, where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, and why you're supposed to do it. His offense was, the dynamic of it was run the ball. Like, that was like run the ball, and then everything else sets up off the run, whether it be play pass, whether it be keeper game. We weren't trying to drop back and throw the ball 40, 50 times a game, because when you're dropping back, your offense puts a lot of stress on your offensive line. So when they're able to come off the ball and attack the defensive line and attack these linebackers and make them react to us, that just kind of was the simplest form of football to me. It was like everything's based off the run. Like, the passes are based off the run, protections are based off the run. So you didn't have to learn 17 different calls for every play. It was pretty layman's terms. It was deep and confusing yet simple, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it's playing chess. Another term I stole from Langston Moore, who we got, I think, for Rod Marinelli, is see a little, you see a lot.
Yep.
If you see a lot, you don't see anything, right? You gotta. It reminds me, I'm looking right outside my garage right now. I got a big hill. I live on a hill, Patrick. It took me a while to figure out I could pull my minivan into my garage because it's such a steep angle. But all I have to do is look in my side view mirror. That's it. I don't have to look at the rear view camera. I don't have to look at the rear view mirror, the other side. If I just look at this one little side view mirror, that's all I need. And that gets done, something that I didn't even know I could get done. Kind of a real world example of you keep it simple and you can get a lot of things done. Now that's the job for every football team. Every football coach knows that. To me, it's the ones who can communicate that and then have their players execute that are the successful coaches out there. From your perspective, man, how is Shane Beamer as a head coach running the South Carolina Gamecocks? I guess 18 months in or so.
Yeah. He's an incredible leader, incredible motivator, incredible recruiter, extremely detail oriented. He's the biggest thing I think the culture has changed here, and that's pretty obvious from just on field, you can tell. But I try to communicate with the guys a lot. They ask me a lot of questions about my playing days, being in the NFL. Like, it's super cool to have them ask me those questions. But I'll spit back questions to them about like, hey, what was the difference in being here under Muschamp versus being here under Beamer? What was the different culture, this or that? And they go, like, Coach Beamer's made it fun. Like he cares about us so much that he cares to make this fun, and he's intentional, and he develops a relationship with every single player. It's not just his captains, or it's not just his starters that get his attention. He'll talk to the walk-ons. He'll talk to the fifth-string kicker. He's just extremely intentional in developing those relationships and investing in every single player, and not just the players that are going to be out there on the field on Saturdays. We had a staff meeting recently, and he kind of put it out there that, like, I don't want when our new signing class comes in, I don't want the walk-ons treated any different than the scholarship guys. Like, they all get the exact same setup no matter what. And if I hear it's different, then there's going to be an issue. So it just goes into how intentional he is and how much he cares about every single guy, and just the love that he's bringing to this place. He coaches in love, and the players feel the love, and in turn they love him and love everything he's about.
I think we all love sports. If we're sitting here talking about it today, you're nice enough to take time out of your day. Clearly you love it, and you love your alma mater, and that's why you're where you're at right now. But did you ever think that a college football program could kind of be built on that concept? Because to me, being 44 years old, I never thought I would see that in my life. Certainly the way that Shane and company have done it. And in 2022, I don't mean to put this critically at all. I think it's amazing in so many ways with what he's been able to do with that messaging. And like you talked about, changing the culture. Do you ever think you'd see a college football program talking about it, how it's being talked about?
Yeah, my last 2 stops in the NFL. So I was Chargers, Chiefs for a year each, and then I was in Atlanta for 4, and then Buffalo for 4. Dan Quinn and Sean McDermott were 2 of the head coaches during that time. Dan Quinn was 2 years in Atlanta, and then Coach McDermott was 4 years in Buffalo. And those guys, like, that's what their program was built on. It was built on love, and it was built on the relationships with your teammates and the relationships with your coaches. So I saw it done at the NFL level. Now an NFL roster is 53, a college roster you're at 108 or 110. So it definitely puts restraints, and it makes it more difficult. But I saw it work. I saw it work in Atlanta. We went from being a team that was, bottom half of our division to playing in a Super Bowl in 2 years. And then I saw it in Buffalo, when I went to Buffalo. It's a team that hadn't made the playoffs in 17 years. In my first year there, we made the playoffs. 3 of the 4 years I was there, we made the playoffs, especially the first year. So I think that when you can sell it, and when it's genuine and it comes truly from the heart, like, as a player, you can tell if a coach really cares about you and loves you, if it's just fluff. So I think with as genuine as Coach Beamer is and intentional as he is, like, there's no fluff to it. It's real, and it's genuine, and it's all the time. So I think it was pretty easy for him to win the locker room and win those guys over because of the person he is, the father he is. Like, his kids are around the office all the time. His wife's there all the time. Players have relationships with them, which is different. It's a different dynamic than most college football locker rooms have.
And now, how do you feel like you fit in the organization and having that development as part of your job? I would imagine that seems to be a pretty natural deal when you're saying you're already kind of a coach on the field in the NFL and now being back at the alma mater.
Yeah, it's been smooth. It's been good. Last year I worked more with the running backs, helping out with Montario Hardesty, and this year I'm kind of moving more towards the tight end position, working with Jody Wright. So I'm trying to, still in an experimental standpoint too, right? It's my second year coaching. So trying to figure out where I will fit best, where life sets up for me best as a coach. I love both of those positions. I love the offensive line because I've been super tied into everything they're doing from a run game and a pass protection standpoint. So I'm just trying to add value wherever I can. I did it at the highest level in the NFL. The NFL game is a lot different than the college football game. So there's a lot of aspects of it. I mean, Coach Spurrier's system was pretty simple too when I was playing. So I think our offense is a little more NFL catered here, just concept wise, different things we do, which is good. So I try to sit back and take it all in, and when I see something that doesn't hit my mind as a player, because I was a player 18 months ago or 24 months ago. So when something doesn't hit my mind that they're trying to install, I kind of will step in and be like, I don't know if the players are going to be receptive to that, if they're going to get that. I would maybe word it differently, or I would maybe try to change this or change that to make sure it really hits their brain, because it's not hitting my brain as a player. And a lot of the coaches now, I mean, Coach Hardesty recently played, but a lot of the coaches, played in a different era of football. So, I mean, they're all so smart too. They all see stuff a lot different than I see it as a player, as a coach, which I'm trying to learn that aspect of it. But I try to put the player, I try to intertwine my playing days into my coaching days to make sure if it doesn't make sense to me as a player, then it won't make sense to our players, if that makes sense. So
absolutely.
Yeah, just trying to pour into it and make sure, we cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure our players are ready to play at the highest level possible on Saturdays.
And it was a heck of a run last year, improving from 2 wins to 7, especially the bowl game, and tons of positive momentum. From the outside looking in, fans, guys like myself, what do we get wrong? What do we have wrong based off of year number 1, and especially from an offensive perspective? Let's go there, especially since you were involved with the running backs, now the tight ends. What is the misperception out there?
I would say, I mean, last year we had a lot of growing pains early on in the year, right? It was the first year of an offense is always difficult. From an install standpoint, because not an offense isn't always, when you install an offense, you might not have the exact personnel for it, right? So Coach Beamer took on, a Muschamp roster. So players that might not have filled Satterfield's offense fit Bobo's offense. So I think as time went and as the season went on, the better football we played was the second half of our football season. So I think when we started to figure out what to play to our guys' strengths, and we had the growing pains early on in the year. So I would say just it takes time. It's nothing's ever a quick fix. Obviously, winning 7 games compared to 2, we might feel it's a quick fix, but I know there was some frustrations at times. But we made it over the hump to get to a bowl game on a roster that, a lot of people said that we wouldn't win 4 or 5 games. So I think there's a lot of good that came from last year. And I think, just being around spring ball this 2 months ago, we are night and days ahead of where we were the previous season right now. One, we got a quarterback that's played a bunch of football now. We got an offensive line that's all back. So, I think it's trending 100% in the right direction. I'm expecting big things from Gamecock football this year.
Yeah, I know a lot of Gamecock fans are as well. You just touched on Spencer Rattler. Your impressions of him so far?
Just a mature leader. I wouldn't say he's the most vocal person, but I don't think a leader. There's no one way to be a leader. He's not a big rah, clap his hands, motivate. Some guys are like that. I was a captain for 2 years in South Carolina, and I couldn't tell you the one time when I ever called the group together and did a hype chant or do this or that. I was a lead by example. I'm going to do my job, hop in line, do your job, or else there's going to be repercussions. So I think he's a guy that holds people accountable in the locker room, but he's not a big rah guy. But he plays at a super high level. Super mature player, and I tell you what, the ball comes out of his hand like a lot of the guys I played with at the next level. So he's a really talented player.
You were talking about leadership there. Who were some of the best that you saw? I know you were an excellent leader in the NFL as well, but some other guys that you played with, and maybe from a different style perspective as well, if you could touch on how they did it as well as they did it.
I would probably the best leader I ever played with was Kyle Williams. I think he played for 13 years for the Buffalo Bills, played there his entire time, went to LSU, was a 5th or 6th round pick, was just a gritty dude who, brought his lunch pail to work every day and just went and grinded it out. But his intentionality just to people, to develop relationships. My first day in Buffalo, I walked in the locker room first day OTAs. He came up to me and he goes, "Oh, you're that tough fullback we just signed from Atlanta. Like, tell me about your family. Tell me about your wife. Tell me about your kids." Like, really, took time to invest in me. And he had the gift of gab. Like, he could talk and he could motivate. Like, Coach McDermott wasn't the greatest motivator pregame. Like, he wasn't a big rah-rah guy. He's a really good coach and a really good, disciplinarian, and made sure everything was lined up and we were going to execute because this, and this. But our pregame hype was Kyle Williams. Coach McDermott would be like, "All right, Kyle, you got him." And he'd give us like a 2-minute spiel. I'd be like sitting there like, "All right, dude, can kickoff happen already? Like, let's go." So Kyle was awesome. I mean, Matt Ryan was an incredible leader in Atlanta. Lorenzo Alexander was a longtime player. He was an undrafted free agent who kind of played for 13, 14 years, was a special teams All-Pro. Just guys that really went out of their way to invest in people, invest in the relationships, and guys that went out of their way to be the best teammate possible. I think were the best leaders that I ever played with. And I try to model that. Because I was a journeyman earlier. I was on 3 teams my first 3 years. So I kind of was like, all right, if I'm going to make it, I better figure out how these guys that have been doing it for a long time, how they're doing it. So I kind of, and I tell a lot of our players this now. Oddly enough, I was like a backpack my first 2 or 3 years in the NFL. Like, I would see what Tom Bali was doing. If Tom Bali was getting in the steam room, Pat DiMarco was going to get in the steam room because he's in his 10th year, and Pat DiMarco is trying to get to 10 years. If Andy Studebaker is going in the film room, Pat DiMarco is going to go in the film room because he's doing something that obviously Pat needs to be doing. So I kind of catered my system as a player after guys that had been there and done it for a long time at a high level. And that really hits home, I think, to a lot of our players. Is like, if Colton Gauthier, like, what's Spencer Rattler doing? Follow what he's doing. He's been doing it at a high level for 3 or 4 years now. You ought to cater your system and how you're going to tick. Obviously put your own spill on it, but figure out what's made him successful and then implement it into your plan on how you want to go and attack each day.
I think the Will Muschamp era at South Carolina gets the bad rap of being kind of known just as a stepping stone to get guys to the NFL. That was kind of, I think, the public perception there. You just mentioned it, though. Obviously, all college football players want to go to the NFL. If you come to the SEC and you don't believe you can play in the NFL, you're probably in the wrong spot. So now that Shane Beamer is there, and we talked about the love concept and the culture change, how does that dichotomy still kind of exist, especially from your role? Like, how do you still use the NFL as a kind of a carrot and a motivator and the whole thing, and yet still keep in mind the team concept and the concept of loving your teammate?
Yeah, it's a recruiting pitch that we have to throw, right? The SEC has more players drafted in the NFL every single year than any other conference. So it's definitely a way to get guys here, and it's an attractive, sexy piece to get guys to come to an SEC school. But once you're here, like, that's just recruiting, right? You in recruiting, you got to tell kids what they want to hear at times to get them here, and then when they're here, they got to put their head down and work. And I think from Luke Day in our weight room to Clint Haggard in our training room, the amount of time that we invest in these guys through all departments, Kristen Coggin in our nutrition department, like, we just have people that are so intentional and want to invest and want what's best for these guys, that I think that they understand that we're trying to put them in the best situation to succeed, not just now, but at the next level, whether it be playing in the NFL or whether it be, Derek Moore setting up or Connor Shaw setting up internships over the summer for them. Like, I think they feel the love and the intentionality that this place has. And I think that, at the end of the day, all of them want to play at the next level, but some of them know that they can't, but they want to be as successful as they can at whatever they do next. And that's our job as coaches and leaders and just people in that building to really pour into these people and just, they better leave this place a lot better than when they came here. That's our job.
Well, you obviously did that and continued to now pour back into the program, and it certainly should be commended for that. Is your dog going to lick you? I was talking to somebody a little bit earlier and they were trying to get on the porch and going to go get you.
He's a big. There's a dog across the creek barking at him, so he's just letting him know what's up.
All right, if you need to give us a play-by-play on that, feel free to interrupt me at any portion here.
He's a golden retriever. He's like a cat. He's far from aggressive.
The bark is bigger than the bite. Got it. Wondering your relationships with your former college teammates. Have you kind of reconnected with any guys since you've been back around the program a little bit? And what are some of the memories that you hold from the SEC championship game back in 2010 and everything that came along with playing for Steve Spurrier?
Yeah, being back here, I've definitely rekindled a lot of relationships with people, which has been good. We've tried to – Coach Beamer's made it kind of a key point to try to get former players around here more because they were the people that built this program. When he did his initial press conference, I don't know exactly word for word what he said, but this is not my program. This is the former players program. They built this place. Like Williams-Brice Stadium is Williams-Brice Stadium, and Sandstorm is Sandstorm because of the players that were in this building before he was. So he's trying to get as many of them back as possible, trying to, have our current players see what the former players are up to, what they're doing, their experiences, Gamecocks, to really – make it a family. And that kind of goes back to the love that he's selling above all else. So, Walker and Abbott is a local guy here in Columbia, Jeremy Burgess, Jason Barnes, who I played with here. Stephen Garcia has been up here a bunch. He was my roommate for 2.5 years. So it's been really good to see him again. I haven't seen him since my third year in the NFL because I was just so busy. I never really had time to make it back here. And then adding kids to the element just made it a lot more difficult to travel. We have 5 to 10 former players on the sideline at each game. So, every time I have the chance, I run over and give them a big hug. So it's been so cool to be back and get those relationships going again. And, it's the Gamecock family, and Gamecocks helping Gamecocks is something that we sell here. From a former player to current player standpoint, if we can all help each other out in any way possible, why not?
From an old dude, I graduated South Carolina in 2000. So I started going to football games when I was 3 years old or something. So I've seen the eras of Gamecock football, but I've never heard a coach like Shane Beamer express the clear vision and the unique identity of the program like he has done it already. And in the way that he's done it. Do you see a big difference between what the program is now than what it was in your time from that approach, from Shane Beamer, how he's approaching things? Obviously, being a first-year head coach last year is much different than where Steve Spurrier was in his career and the whole thing. But then kind of from the day-to-day, I guess, how is that different would be my question.
Yeah, I think college football has changed a lot in the last, so it's been 12 years since I've been in college. It has to change. It had to change. Back when I was around, we were an afternoon practice team. Now we're a morning practice team, so the players can get to class in the afternoon. The new facility is like everything because now everything's in-house. Back when I was here, we were at the stadium, then we were over here. We had to do meals over here. It was like a bunch of moving parts. But now, I think everything from just like a structured standpoint is kind of catered more towards the NFL model, where the more you can have the guys in the building, the more you can have them structured and on one time slot. All the guys, like we have 3 different workout groups and our guys you're working out with your position group all the time. So that way you make sure you have rides. It's not based on your class schedule. It's not based on this. There's not too many moving parts. We try to simplify it down for them to make sure that they succeed and are on time for everything and are accountable. And I think that a lot of that is, Coach Beamer's been, he was at Virginia Tech, Georgia, and Oklahoma. He's been at 3 premier programs since he was here. So I'm sure he's taken pieces from each of his stops and implemented into this grand scheme that he's running here in South Carolina now. And he had a blueprint with his dad. He's around football his entire life. So this wasn't a long, it wasn't a long time coming, but it wasn't a long time coming because, he's had the blueprint since a young age. So I think he was just sitting back, doing his due diligence and waiting for his time to come. And I'm glad it came here at the University of South Carolina. I'm glad that he's our head ball coach.
You mentioned how much college football has changed since your playing days. Biggest changes, I imagine, would be what we all know, transfer portal, name, image, and likeness now. Maybe some of the offensive schemes going up and down the field, scoring a few more points maybe. Is college football better off today, do you feel like, than your playing days?
It's just different. I wouldn't say there's a better or worse. I do think that the name, image, and likeness, I do think that it does give guys a unique opportunity. These universities were making millions and millions of dollars off of them, and it's good to have the players be compensated for it. I don't know what the exact right way to do it is. I know there's stuff being shuffled around everywhere right now. I know there were some changes made 2 days ago to kind of the law behind it, but it was bound to happen. It's college sports has changed so much, like we just said, and there's going to be a lot of moving parts in any aspect of it. So it's just about figuring out the exact right way. I don't know. Like I enjoyed my college time, and I thought that it wasn't too far off when I was playing 12 years ago. Do I think it's perfect now? No. Do I think it was perfect then? No. I think there's probably an in between that would make it a little more accessible. It's just tough. But I do think that these guys deserve what they're getting with the name, image, and likeness and being able to profit off of it. The transfer portal, there's pros and cons to it. I do think that guys should have the opportunity to explore options. The exact timeline of it, the exact platform of it, I don't know if it's perfect now, what would be perfect, but there's a lot of moving parts to college football right now.
No doubt about that, man. Just talked to Savell Newton last week. I think he was a little bit before your time at Carolina, and he said if the transfer portal would have been available back in the day, he would have taken advantage of it when Coach Spurrier came in and said he wasn't going to be a quarterback. What about from your perspective? Would you have ever taken advantage of the transfer portal if it had been available to you back in the day?
In my situation, no, because I came in and played pretty quick. I'm also a pretty loyal dude. I'm back here in South Carolina because I love this place, because of what this place did for me from an education, playing standpoint, the relationships I made with teammates and friends around here. I wouldn't have explored options unless, we had, granted I did go through a coaching change too. So, I guess I can't speak on everybody's behalf, but I wouldn't have explored it because I believed in Coach Spurrier. I believed in the recruiting classes that he was bringing in. I believed in my teammates. I believed in this university and the education it was going to give me in the long run. Each scenario is different and each situation is different. So there's no perfect way to do it. If guys enter the portal to better their lives, awesome. The better for them. But I don't think I would have.
H-back, I think, was technically your position in the Steve Spurrier offense, right? On the fullback in the NFL. What about the tight ends now? Is that the best comparison to what you did at South Carolina or even what you did in your time in the NFL?
Yeah, so my senior year, we had Wesley Saunders who got in trouble for messing around with some agents at one point, and he ended up, it was kind of crazy. He wasn't blatant. He shouldn't have got kicked off the team, but he did. And Coach Spurrier was like, hey, he used to call me DiMarco. He goes, hey, DiMarco, you're pretty smart. You think you can play tight end for us this year? You think you can pick it up this spring?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'd love to." So, I mean, it was as bad as it was for Wes, it was a great opportunity for me to step in and add value. So, I mean, I played when we were in 11 personnel. We had one tight end and one back on the field. I played Y. And then we had two tight ends on the field. I played F. And when we had two backs on the field, I played F. So I was able to do a lot of different things. You know, a lot of stuff that we're trying to do now with guys like Jaheim Bell and Nate Adkins and these guys. We're going to be moving them around a lot because they're really good athletes. They're smart players. And they can just bring a different dynamic to the game. If you can have a good athlete block out of the backfield, catch the ball out of the backfield, split them out wide, make them stay in base defense, and if they want to get in sub defense, then we got big people and we can just run the ball down their throats. So there's different matchups you can create by having different athletes on the field. And I like bigger athletes. Although I'm calling myself an athlete, kind of hard to do now. I don't feel like I could do much anymore.
You're barely removed from the NFL career, and ended up being a Pro Bowler at one point as well, and jumped around for several different organizations. I think you can still call yourself an athlete, especially. I'm guessing you're still hitting the golf ball too. I
guess a lot of people argue that golf isn't an athletic sport.
Well, there are athletic swings and there are unathletic swings, right? And how far are you hitting the golf ball with the driver these days?
I hit it pretty good. I probably hit it 285, 290. So golf's from the blood with my Uncle Chris. And my dad played when I was growing up, so I was able to learn it from him. But I mean, I take golf more as an athletic. I take it more as an athletic sport where I've tried to have an instructor teach me how to swing a golf club and knock my spin down and do this. And I'm like, that's not natural. Like, that doesn't feel normal to me to have this strange grip and then press my hands forward and shift weight. And I'm like, the ball's sitting right there. It's not moving. Why the heck? Like, I shouldn't have to do 12 different things to hit this golf ball. It's sitting right there. So I try to take it more from the athletic standpoint.
I love it. And what's the handicap these days?
Oh, it's trending up now that I started coaching. It was down to a 1 during COVID, and I'm up to like a 4 right now.
Wow, that's impressive, man. When you have 4 kids and your handicap equals your amount of kids, that's impressive stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll continue to creep up. Hopefully no more kids, though, but the handicap I'm sure will creep up.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do the math, and you had to be somewhere in the range. Let's see, you got to Carolina in what year? 08, 09-ish, somewhere in there?
7.
Okay. And then I think it was right around then, maybe it's a couple years before, but your uncle was battling Tiger at the Masters in what year was it?
It was I think that was 04 or 05.
That sounds right.
Played in the final for Tiger and Phil in 04, 05.
Were you there? Did you see it in person?
I was there for Phil. I was not there for Tiger.
Wow. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be there on that day with Tiger, man, and it was something I'll never ever forget. I'm pretty sure that's when he chipped in from 16. That's so famous, the Nike ball, Paul. Yeah, it's crazy.
I was joking around with Chris. I said, "You went toe to toe with Tiger," and he kind of giggles and he's like, "I should have beat him."
I know a lot of people were pulling for him for sure that day. And what was it like growing up the nephew of a guy who was, I mean, I don't know what he got up to in the official golf ranking. Do you know what the highest he ever got up to? It had to be way up there.
He was the number 5 golfer in the world for like 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And my dad golfed a little bit. I mean, I would go up to the par 3 and putz around with my buddies. We'd mainly just try to hurt each other and do football stuff on a golf course. But I guess I didn't take it all in when I was a young kid, knowing that my uncle was Chris DiMarco. I thought he was just Uncle Chris. We did go to tournaments and we did some really cool stuff with him. But looking back now as a 33 years old, if Chris was still playing on the PGA Tour and I would be all over it now. But back then I kind of took it for granted. Now he's still playing on the senior tour though, and he's playing well, so it's been really fun to track. Now that I love golf as much as I love it, it's a completely different game. But it's, I'm super proud of him in his career. He was, he did it the right way too. He was, it was family first and then golf all the time for him. So, and I kind of modeled my career after that too. It was always family first and then football. So
Yeah, I'd love to follow up on that, man, because you hear it from so many different places, and you see people handle it so differently. I mean, just for any job, first of all, balancing work life and family life is difficult, but then professional sports, and now moving on to the coaching career, how. I guess you had the model with your uncle and your family kind of laid the foundation for you, but can you explain the challenge that is, and then how you kind of go about that work life balance?
Yeah, the time constraints are pretty brutal when you're playing, when you're coaching. I mean, I guess any corporate job too. I would say just the biggest thing for me was, I mean, when I was playing, I would leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd get home at 6 o'clock at night. So I wouldn't see my kids in the morning when I left. But when I got home, it was right around dinner time, and I made sure that I was going to be super intentional. I was going to be the one giving them a bath. I was going to make sure I had dinner with them. I was going to put one or two of them to sleep. So it's just about the time you get. I mean, Tuesday was our day off. I'd go in and do a little bit of recovery in the morning, and then all afternoon I would come home and I'd try to be as intentional as I can with my kids and my wife, just because I'm away so much. So yeah, I would just say just about being intentional with your time. These cell phones that I'm zooming with you now are we have access to everything at our fingertips, and it's good and it's bad at the same time. So just knowing when to put the phone down and leave the phone in a different room, just to have that one-on-one time with zero distractions is super important. And now that my kids are getting older, it's a lot easier because we can go outside and play. But when they were babies, when I was playing, especially in Buffalo in November, December, it was like, all right, well, we're stuck in the house because it's 3 feet of snow on the ground and it's 6 degrees outside. So, but Weston was one in 2016, a Super Bowl year in Atlanta. And then we had Sutton when I was in Buffalo, and then we had Coco in 2020. So it was, or 2021. So it was, we only had 2 kids when I was playing, which made it a lot easier to be more intentional just for those 2. Like Kyle Williams had 4 kids, and they were all, when he was playing, when I was in Buffalo, they were from 9 to 4. And so, I mean, I was like, hats off to him having that many kids and going home to it. Not to mention being the ultimate pro that he was as a player. So it's, it's tough, but it's also, you just have to like make the main thing the main thing. And at the end of the day, your family's going to be with you when the game's gone. So that's kind of the way I attacked it.
Others in football that did a good job in that? Were there any coaches in football that you've been a part of, or other players besides the Kyle Williams that you mentioned that you really kind of said, hey, I think he's doing it right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach Beamer does it as good as anybody else too. I mean, his family's up there a lot. I think he tries to have lunch with his wife a couple days a week up there. His kids try to come up there a decent amount, whether they're there for practice or they're there in the afternoons when he's finishing up recruiting stuff. Like they're around. He's trying to keep them as involved as they can be in it, just so they kind of see. He's also laying the blueprint of what being a hardworking dad is for him too. Like they want to see him obviously succeed, and he wants to show them what hard work and dedication now it pays off in the long run. I mean, Coach McDermott was the exact same way. His kids and his wife were around all the time. The Bills, the Buffalo Bills, as an organization in general, they did a lot of really cool stuff for families of players and coaches. They did a Halloween trick or treat thing where each of the coach had a different themed like trick or treat office where we'd bring all of our kids up there. We'd all be dressed up, and we'd stop by each room and then get different candy. And then in the indoor, they had blow ups and haunted houses. So Buffalo did a really good job of keeping the players and their families and kind of tying it all in, because I mean, honestly, when you're playing, if as a player, if I'm not playing just for myself and for my family, if I'm playing for Kyle Williams and his family, if I'm playing for Devontae Freeman and his family, if I'm playing for my teammates and their families, like you're going to play really well, not just because you want it for yourself, but you want it for them. Like you want to take care of everybody. And that's kind of the the theme that Buffalo brought in the love, and the same thing that Coach Beamer's doing, and above all else, like love your brother. So it's I think they're all tied in. It's why each of those organizations have been successful, and that's why I think South Carolina is really going to take off here soon.
Being a part of something bigger than yourself, is that
No
one
doubt.
of the reasons why you're doing what you're doing right now?
Yes, no doubt. And it's, for me, it's about giving back. I played and I did this and I did that, but all that stuff's in vain if I can't pass it on to the next generation of players. And not only from a playing standpoint, but if they don't, hopefully I'm trying to model what it's like to be a husband and a father to them too. So in, 4, 5, 10 years from now, when they're married and have kids, they're like, wow, Coach DiMarco really did it right. He really loved his wife and loved his kids. And, I try to have some of the running backs and the tight ends over at our house now to play with my kids, to see me interact with them, to see my wife, like how I treat her and stuff like that. So I think it's just trying to show, because, each of these kids comes from different backgrounds. Like they all have different stories. They all have different childhoods. So just trying to show them what love looks like in a household with a wife and kids in college sports, which is crazy. It's kind of what I'm trying to do.
It just dawned on me. Was Shane your position coach back in the day?
No, he was our special teams coordinator. So he ran special teams for 2 years. He was a recruiting coordinator. We were pretty close when I was here playing, because I was his PP on punt protection. I was his off returner on kickoff return. I was a 3 or 4 face special teams player. So it's been pretty cool to see his growth. I think Sutton, his oldest daughter, was 1 or 2 when he was here, and now he's got 3 kids, and it's been so cool to see.
Well, it just dawned on me while you're talking about that he kind of set the example for you. Maybe you didn't even know it at the time, and now you're passing along, maybe full circle. And I know you mentioned time constraints and the whole thing. Really appreciate you taking so much time with us today. If you want to leave us with any final thoughts, feel free to do that. And I always try to ask what we might be getting wrong about Gamecock football or just sports in general from a dad's perspective. The whole thing. Any advice you can impart after having gone through what you've gone through and know what you know? We're all for it here.
Yeah, I would say that, like, from a fan standpoint, I'm an Orlando Magic fan. I grew up in Orlando, and it's been a really tough last 8 years to be an Orlando Magic fan. But as a player, and I think as all players, we put so much more stress on our plate, and we care so much more than a lot of fans ever think we would. That I would say just grace is a big thing, not only as a player but as a person, just in general. These players aren't perfect. Even the best players in the world aren't perfect. So just give them grace in playing. Same thing as being a dad. Like, my son's playing t-ball and he might strike out, he might make an error, he might do this or that. Like, I'm going to be frustrated, but then I'm still going to hug him, I'm going to kiss him, and tell him I love him. I would just say grace. I was a big thing because as a teammate early on in my career, I was very critical. Because I put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I wasn't the most talented person in the world, so I had to do more. So I was frustrated when I saw these super talented guys who just wouldn't put in the time, wouldn't put in the effort. And talking with Kyle Williams and the Lorenzo Alexander guys that were ultimate pros, they were like, "Hey, you got to stop being so like." Everybody's different. Everybody ticks different. So, like, give these players that might not tick like you, give them grace, because, like, obviously they're going through their own stuff. They're busting their tails. They're doing the best they possibly can. So yeah, I would say just give grace to the players, give grace to the coaching staff. Everybody's working extremely hard. We're up there from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. in season, sometimes till midnight. So it's a lot of hours and a lot of time we put in. We're trying to do it perfect, but we won't, and we know we won't. But we're giving it our all.
Good stuff, Patrick DiMarco, man. Really appreciate all the time, the insight, and love to have you back on. Consider it an open invite.
Awesome, thank you, Tim. Appreciate you having me.
No problem, Patrick DiMarco at Pat DiMarco 42, where you can find him on Twitter. In knowing that, and knowing we're doing this on the internet as well, make sure that you don't always stay on the phone, and you do take time for the important things in life. And just everything he touched on, what he stands for, and the example he's giving for Gamecock football players right now, I think so important. And I went on a long diatribe earlier this week about the fit of Shane Beamer and coming along at the right time, and the message, the authenticity, and the culture. I mean, that's so easy to talk about from the outside, right? The culture. And Lou Holtz was the guy who did it from my perspective around Carolina football first. And then now talking to former Lou Holtz players, it's interesting to hear their perspective based on what kind of the public perception was, or what I thought the program was at the time. But just having a guy like Pat DiMarco attached to the Gamecock football program, knowing everything he's accomplished as not only a player for Steve Spurrier in the SEC East champion year in 2010, and then going on to the longtime NFL career and success there, just having someone like that around, like he mentioned, he can impart, a word here or a word there. He can speak up to the coaching staff and say, yeah, that didn't quite work. He can be an example for players, not just as a guy who did it in the league and clearly puts in tons of effort and detail oriented and all that, but also a guy that has the priorities straight, man. I think there's so much value in that. And I get why certain programs can overlook that with the pressure to win. Like Pat was just talking about, right? I heard him trying to educate us on the outside of just how much is poured into what we see on game day, right? How much time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears that we don't see, that we can't identify with. If you haven't been there and you haven't been a part of a program that is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the season, 6 or 7 days a week, I mean, that's unfathomable for most of us, I think. And then to see it go poorly sometimes in some games, or just come up short, and to see the reaction be so negative sometimes from fans, I think can be just really disconcerting. And right on cue, Adam hits us up with Mark Kingston needs to go. I'm tired of his excuses. I mean, I couldn't make that up. I just couldn't make that up. And I understand where Adam's coming from as well, because the numbers are what they are. Last night, USC Upstate beat South Carolina in baseball 9-6, and the Gamecocks dropped to 24-23 overall, 10-14 in the SEC. And it's just like I used to be in charge of putting on sports highlights every night on the 11 o'clock news, and some local parents of various sports at a whatever level, right? Youth level, high school level. Why don't you see more of this? These guys put a lot of time and effort into it and the whole thing. Well, because ultimately it's not a revenue generating sport, or there's not a lot of outside interest beyond those that are involved. So there is that too. Not trying to say that you can use that to excuse lack of production or anything else. It's just that you need to understand. And I think that grace part is the important part. If you want to be a really, really good fan, always being critical isn't the way to go. Like Pat said, where he was as a player early on in his NFL career, being critical of his teammates, that wasn't being helpful. The veterans told him that you got to come at it in a different way. We understand what you're saying, and we're not disagreeing with it necessarily. You just got to maybe expressing the message in a different way would be more helpful. Ray Tanner put it like that one time during his coaching days. I was talking to him. It's not always the message that players have a problem with. Sometimes it's how that message is delivered that can be a disconnect. And I think it definitely goes the same with programs, universities, pro teams, whatever it is, and their fans in a lot of ways. And right now it's at that critical juncture for Gamecock baseball because of the numbers being what they are. I went back and looked at them, and they haven't won 40 games since Mark Kingston took over. Gamecock baseball, I forget the run that Ray Tanner was on, but I remember doing a story on it back in the TV days of, another 40-win season. And Drew Meyer was talking about how they won 50 games multiple times during his Carolina career. Like, that's where the program just was. It's not there now. And obviously fans are going to be upset. maybe we'll get more on this tomorrow, but I threw it out on Twitter today and read a great article about college sports on The Athletic today. And it was based around former Coastal Carolina head football coach and really successful businessman, Joe Moglia, right? And what he would do to change college athletics. So I put up a poll question, and he had 4 main things that he wanted to change, that if he was in charge right now, he would change in college athletics. Number 1, he'd have an executive committee, basically like a board, right, with ultimate power in college athletics, real power. You'd have to get voted onto the board, but you could also be voted off. But instead of having committees and subcommittees and red tape after red tape to get stuff done, nope, this board could get things done. They would have power. So that's number 1, and that is tied for number 1 in the voting of 4 options of which of his NCAA changes do you like most. Put it up on the Twitter account at Tim Hill UFA. Number 2, or tied for 1, I should say, is reorganize the FBS. Basically, the Power 5 splits off. I think his specific suggestion was then you split those into Group 1 and Group 2 maybe and go from there. Just be simpler, and it makes more sense. And I think he had a line in that story. He said, let's not pretend like the NCAA or the Power 5 cares about the Group of 5. It's just a different deal, right? Another one that he suggested was to fix coaching contracts. I never really thought about this, but in the NFL, you don't have the problem of coaches jumping from team to team because you can't do it if you got a contract, right? The league penalizes the other team for tampering. You have to trade something to get a coach out of his contract in the NFL because that's the way it's set up. I get it. College football a little different because you got to have extra years on the contract to be considered viable in the recruiting game. If you only got 1 year on your contract and you're a recruit that's going to play 4 years in college, why would you go to that college if you don't know the coach is going to be there? I get that. The fix that he had kind of goes hand in hand with the next one in that you eliminate the signing period. And when a school offers, you get a 48-hour window to sign that thing as a student athlete. And if you do, then you're making a 1-year commitment to that school. To me, that's the biggest thing that I think would really help college football in a lot of ways. Put that in there, man. I really like that idea. That one was actually last in our poll question today, but we'll probably talk more about that. And obviously, college football, college sports evolving. Touched on it in multiple ways this morning, but really had a good time talking to our guest. Really appreciate Patrick DiMarco from Carolina Football stopping in with us here. And not just him, but we had plenty of Gamecock baseball talk a little bit earlier on, and hearing from Stuart Lake with former player in Brady Allen and getting some of those stories behind the scenes. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope our 2-hour little show here helped get through your midweek, maybe a little midweek funk from a 10 a.m. to noon standpoint on a Wednesday. But Adam, appreciate you popping in there. Great job on the radio show. I'm happy for you. Thank you, Adam. And I get it where you're coming from. I get it for sure. Everybody who contributed on today's show from a comment standpoint, Craig and Justin, Colette, bunch of you guys with comments all throughout the program. Really appreciate you joining us. However you did it, feel free to tell a friend, join the live show, listen later as well. I mentioned Stitcher yesterday. We got Spotify. Catch this show all kind of ways and do it at any time. Actually, at any point, obviously, it archives after this live stream from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. We got Perry Orth coming up later this week. Got John Combs popping on tomorrow. Who knows who else might join the show, but really appreciate you being a part of today's program, and I'm having fun doing this thing. Hope you're having fun being a part of it as well. I think this was just show number 8 on Tim Hill Unrestricted Free Agent. It continues to evolve. We got the music going, the whole thing. Again, thanks for listening today. That'll do it for the Wednesday edition of Tim Hill Unrestricted Free Agent.